This, we took a really interesting approach in allowing different students that were interested in the educational system to, again, personalize the type of people that they would like to hear from about the story of the University of La Verne, and follow different characters based upon their own interests. So in the two extreme examples, again, you're just seeing people explore content based upon who they want to hear it from and how they want to receive it. Apps. Of course, apps have become critically important to creating really fun and engaging ways that you can appeal to your audience, both in the mobile capacity, of course, with the iPad introduction, and across the web. More and more individuals are looking to apps to receive their information and to engage with your brand in a number and diversity of ways. In this particular case, there is things like the widget box, where there is a number of free apps that you can customize based upon your own needs. These are just two examples of how apps have really helped us to define, in the particular case in the lower right-hand corner, the art institutes were interested in bringing out a new fashion program to a local market. Not only did they want to build awareness around those fashion programs, but they also wanted to make sure that they were starting to identify who those individuals were. So in this particular case, people love to share on their content on their Facebook walls and across various other social networks the type of persona they are. So they were able to personalize and get feedback on, after answering a number of questions about who they were and how they might fit into this particular program. Another great app that we were able to develop out for the Ivar Star, Harrah's Entertainment wanted to do almost an American Idol type campaign in which people could easily submit videos, rank videos, and share videos in order to potentially become one of Harrah's Ivar Star, where they received a substantial contract and the opportunity to appear as a regular act at one of the casino properties. So again, just using these types of technologies in really simple ways in order to generate content and really create a relevant way for people to explore different types of media that you want to feature. And then I think this is one of the final ones, is really owning and branding that knowledge center. So this goes back to initially how people are using the web and what are they searching for. I mean, in many cases, and in these the couple examples here, I'm really going to be looking at Dell and Stanford, both of which have done an incredible job of not only creating a content platform for people to access information that they may be looking for, whether it's related to the brand or whether it's just related to popular theorems or popular cultural ideas and newsworthy items. Where do they go and how do they find it becomes very important, especially as we touch on search engine optimization and making sure that your brand is always top of mind when it comes to the type of content that your customers are looking for, making sure that they don't find it somewhere else that may be spun, incorrect, or old or dated when looking to answer questions around the information. So this somewhat really incorporates that idea of customer service that we touched on earlier, along with really helping you to begin taking control of that digital footprint so that you're kind of master and commander of all things related to your brand when it comes to common questions, concerns, challenges, or rewards. And then finally, this is just a couple examples of how user-generated content is really being used to create hugely entertaining platforms for a number of brands. In the case of the lower left-hand side, we see a film starring Hayden Panettiere, of course, from Heroes called I Love You, Beth Cooper, in which we engage with the YouTube audiences to create a number of videos to share their moment of truth for a little-known film release. In the same supplement, Tufts University, and I'll launch this one, also incorporated it directly into their admissions process. This idea of people creating video supplements or to really demonstrate their skill sets, their interests for applying to Tufts. So just tasking that community, that dedicated audience that you already have to create really compelling content that is ultimately, you'll notice that Tufts is coming up multiply in all of the search results to create more engaging content around your brand. So it's just a way, again, of using that community, not having to come up with yourself to create really, really engaging and relevant content. Another one that we saw, I don't know how many of you guys are addicted to Foursquare. I know there's a couple of us in this office that follow it considerably. But this is just an example. In this particular case, we have the museum, the Art Institute of Chicago, that I recently came across that is really using, typically Foursquare was thought to be used for simply restaurants or gyms or any number of customer-friendly brands. To create almost a retention model to keep people coming back to their site. And of course, they're rewarded by different things like badges, as well as potential to become the mayor of the institution. In this particular case, you're showing, I think the Art Institute of Chicago does an incredible job of how they're taking what Foursquare would arguably be a relevantly entertainment-based platform to another level. If you notice here, they've created a special offer. They're using this almost as a press release or almost Twitter platform of being able to tell people about upcoming deals because they know they have a dedicated audience of people checking in every day. So how do you reach out to them and engage with them? And then the final one that we'll be covering that I think we get tasked with potentially solving quite a bit is how do we use our social channels in a more engaging way? How do we make them stickier? How do we create a stronger following? And I think Elliot Darvik, who's one of our senior consultants related to social networking, really put it clearly when he was when we were conversing about how things are changing within the type of content that we create for our social channels. And he put it that really, these marketers now, meaning us and you, are having to relook at the way that we create content and the type of content that we create. So essentially, it's moved to really thinking like a publisher, and that comes into a considerable number of ways. Not only if we look at some of the more popular areas that are accessed, like the mommy blogs for some very niche markets. In this particular case, the New York Times has taken it upon itself, who already is a publisher, to create a site that covers everything related to choosing, called The Choice, choosing your higher education institution. In this particular case, we're also showing the Colorado Daily, who has a number of followers that is using this way of accessing and creating relevant information for their audiences in very compelling and entertaining formats. So how do you come up with that content strategy? What type of news do you cover? If you look at some of the commonalities between all of these, they're all responding to daily occurrences that are happening on the news, in their lives. And so really making sure that you have a content strategy that creates just relevant content that happens organically, not something that's been scheduled 10 days ahead of time. So how people are starting to digest this content and some of the content that they're demanding is changing considerably. And this is just a quick example of one of the nonprofits that we saw, a local center called the Loma Linda Medical Center, that started to really engage with creating more relevant content, putting themselves on YouTube, finding a third-party resource, in this particular case, Proton Bob, for one of their service lines, that they were able to cross-promote with. And so many times as we look to how do we create more branded and entertainment or engaging content, again, whether we're relying on third-party partners or whether we're relying on UGC content, there is a number of ways that we can approach getting our brand and our awareness out there and really becoming top of mind. So if we look at top search results now, we start to see how that brand has moved its way up to become much more relevant for individuals looking for information around specific service offerings. So 5 questions to consider before getting started is really just what kind of content might you create from some of the examples that we showed. Obviously, where we challenged in our business process is really where that begins. You have to ask yourself, how is customer service currently working? What is our publicity? What is our reputation online? Do we have an awareness challenge that we have these incredible services or these incredible products but nobody knows about them? So really defining where we are in that process is how we begin to start with where we might tackle that particular business challenge with what we are referring to as branded entertainment content. And then you'll see, of course, that some of the other ones, what are we doing to enable as well as reward our fan base? How do we guide an audience through our process if it's incredibly complex or we have a really longer, considerably longer timeline for buying decisions? And of course, at what areas do we influence decision making? So one of the things I'll share with you is something that we use here internally, which is a customer lifecycle evaluation framework. And there's 8 phases. The first 4 phases are what we have classified as vulnerable and emotional. Excuse me. So if we're creating branded entertainment content or even content for our social channels, we're looking at really creating content that has an emotional appeal, that really tugs at the heartstrings, that is really, really engaging and funny, depending on what we're trying to make people aware of. And what we do is we look at where in this area of the process are we having the largest challenges, and then making sure that we not only create content that is relevant to that particular phase, but also making sure that we create content that is in a distribution channel that allows those individuals to receive it and find it. The second part of the phase is once people have, of course, not only became a lead, are relatively aware of your brand, is when they have determined, and sometimes this can happen quickly, and then other times this can happen over a longer engagement. But we consider these individuals to be classified as educated and influenced. So they're no longer are we going to be creating content that is really tugging at the heartstrings and emotional, but we're going to start to prepare to provide content that is very relevant, that is clean and crisp, and when we talk about content that can be easily personalized, this is where it happens. So as people move farther into the process, you can become more and more targeted on the type of content that you want them to engage in and experience. And of course, the final phase is when we talk about UGC content. It's really using current fans or audiences, or in the case of education or healthcare, patients or alumni, to begin to manage this process for you. So at any one point, you can take that content or those individuals and plug them in to new individuals that are coming through the evaluation framework, the life cycle of the customer. So how do we expose that type of content and those individuals to them? And then also, you'll see that you have fans and loyal followers, but you also have those that are disgruntled or have become disengaged with the product. How do you also begin to limit them from becoming very relevant to those individuals that are just beginning to come in the life cycle? How do you limit the content that they are putting out there? How do you battle that? Becomes more and more critical. So what are some of the ways that we identify opportunities for brand entertainment? Well, we begin with a lot of measurement and social listening. Those are usually the best tools for determining which type of celebrity you are. And one of the things that you have to be very honest with, and even though this can be somewhat funny to look at, is really taking an honest approach to where are we? You know, are we the A-lister that everybody knows about and they know exactly where to go to find more information and to really have fun? Or are we considered to be dated and really aren't being very relevant with the target market or the target audiences that we're going after? So some of the tools that we'll use I'll cover in a second, but in this particular case, it's just what are some of the things that we're looking for to determine what your celebrity status might be. In this particular case, obviously, standard awareness metrics is around what type of, how many impressions are we getting, how many video views, how many page views are we getting through our social campaigns, what type of content is being created. What is the quality of the audience that is being driven through these distribution channels? So in this particular case, our social media traffic. How many are engaging or disengaging with the content? How many are becoming followers as well as dropping off? And it really just comes down to popularity. Are you top of mind? Are people engaging with the content you're receiving? Or is it time to maybe evolve that content into something different or new? And then finally, of course, customer service metrics. How are we measuring the success of customer service with reductions of FAQs, emails, phone calls, or tracking those? And finally, the volume of conversation.